this session. There's so much to talk about in technology. Now, the title is Debating Technology. I don't think there's a debate technology, yes or no. But in covering Silicon Valley for 25 years, I often hear, technology can be used for good or bad, which is inherently true. But sometimes that's used to say, especially by the makers of the technology, well, it's going to be used for good or bad. Hopefully the good outweighs the bad. And to me, that neglects our responsibility to push and steer and limit the technology so it is used for good. But we're going to talk about it. This is a moment of great excitement, especially with artificial intelligence, robotics, and all these technologies. But it's also a moment of great concern. A lot of people have legitimate fears about what this change will bring. That's enough from me. I'm excited to be joined by Dava Newman, head of the MIT Media Lab, and Yann LeCun, who leads AI research and other activities at Meta. Dava, maybe to start with you, I mean, you have such a broad background in technology from obviously your experience in space. Where is your head these days? What are the problems and areas that you think need our attention, and where are you wrestling your brain around?
Thank you, everyone. Good morning. Pleasure to be with you. So, where's my brain? Typically in outer space, thinking about becoming, interspecies. Will we find life elsewhere? It's not option B. So where my head really is, and thinking about technology and the disruption that we feel, and that much more, orders of magnitude more disruption that's coming. So maybe I paint the picture. It really is, I think, a technology super cycle, now convergence of probably 3 technologies at once. The Industrial Revolution, that was okay when we put one technology at a time. Gen AI. Took me 30 seconds before getting into say AI. It's coming, large language models, but it still is in infancy. At the MIT Media Lab, we've been working on AI for 50 years. So now that it's common in everyone's hands, a co-pilot, I'm sure we're going to debate that and talk a lot about it. My esteemed colleague and an expert developing that, we're doing a lot. Most important thing I want to emphasize just in the introductory about AI and Gen AI is we design for humans, human-centered, human flourishing at the Media Lab. So is it trusted? Is it responsible? That's the premise. Actually, we don't do it if it's not. But hold on to your seats, everyone. Rocket launch is coming. Soon, I think we'll all be talking about Gen Bio. If you're not already, not just synthetic bio, but generative bio. We don't, biology is organic. So when AI morphs into Gen Bio, it's no longer a large language model. What we're working on actually, Media Lab, large nature models. Now you're ingesting biology and genetics and biological. Wrap that all around into sensors. Internet of Things. We're pretty famous for, I call it now Internet of All Things, because I have IoT for the oceans to monitor all biodiversity, for the land, climate, air, atmosphere you might think of, and from space. More than half of all of our climate variables are now measured from space. So hopefully that kind of technological whirlwind, I don't know what else to call it, coming with Gen AI, Gen Bio, sensors, measuring everything. To finish up, I put humans and human-centered design right in the middle and asking the upfront questions. Is it intentional for human flourishing and all living things flourishing? If the answer to that is no with our algorithms, then I don't think we should be doing it.
And Yann, that's a good point to turn to you. How do we make sure the AI we can build is the AI we want? How are you trying to focus your work and the development at Meta to make sure that we get an AI that works for humanity?
There's two answers to this. The first thing is you try to make it work well and reliably. The flavor of generative AI or AI that we have at the moment is not quite where we want it to be in terms of it's very useful. We should push it. We're pushing it. Trying to make it more reliable, trying to make it applicable to kind of a wide area of a wide range of areas, but it's not where we want it to be, and it's not very controllable for various reasons. So I think what's going to happen is that within the next 3 to 5 years, we're going to see the emergence of a new brand or paradigm for AI architectures, if you want. Which may not have the limitations of current AI systems, So what are limitations of current AI systems? There are 4 things that are essential to intelligent behavior that they really don't do very well. One is understanding the physical world. Second one is having persistent memory. And third and fourth are being capable of reasoning and complex planning. And LLMs really are not capable of any of this. There is a little bit of an attempt to kind of bolt some words on them to kind of get them to do a little bit of this, but ultimately this will have to be done in a different manner. So that's going to be another revolution of AI over the next few years. And we may have to change the name of it because it's probably not going to be generative in the sense that we understand it today. So that's a first point. Some people have called this in different names. So the technology we have today, large language models, deals very well with the discrete world, and language is discrete. I don't want to upset Stephen, who is Steven Pinker, who is in the room here, but to some extent, language is simple. Much simpler than understanding the real world, which is why we have AI systems that can pass the bar exam or solve equations and things like that, do pretty amazing things. But we don't have robots that can do what a cat can do. The understanding of the physical world of a cat is way superior to everything we can do with AI. So that tells you the physical world is just way more complicated than human language. And it's because, why is language simple? It's because it's discrete objects. And the same with DNA and proteins, right? It's discrete. So the application of those generative methods to this kind of data has been incredibly successful because it's easy to make predictions in a discrete world. You can never predict what word will come after a particular text, but you can produce a probability distribution of all possible words in the dictionary, and there's only a finite number of them. If you want to apply the same principle to understanding the physical world, you will have to train a system to predict videos, for example, right? Show a video to the system and ask it to predict what's going to happen next. And that turns out to be a completely intractable task. So the techniques that are used for large language models do not apply to video prediction. So we have to use new techniques, which is what we're working on at Meta, but it may take a few years before that pans out. So that's kind of the first thing. And when that pans out, it will open the door to a brand new class of applications of AI, because we'll have systems that will be able to reason and plan, because they will have some mental model of the world that current systems really don't have. So they'll be able to predict the consequences of their actions and then plan a sequence of actions to arrive at a particular objective. And that may open the door to real agentic system. Everybody is talking about agentic AI, but nobody knows how to do it. And that's kind of one way to do it properly. And also to robotics. So the coming decade may be the decade of robotics. Okay, that was the first answer. And the second answer, which is shorter, the way to make sure that AI is applied properly is to give the tools for people to build a diverse set of AI systems and assistants with which understand all the languages in the world, all the cultures, value systems, etc. And that can only be done through open source platforms. So I'm a big believer in the idea that the way the AI industry and ecosystem is going, open source foundation models are going to be dominant over proprietary systems, and they're going to basically be the substrate for the entire industry. They already are to some extent, and they're going to enable a really wide diversity of AI systems. And I think it's crucially important because within a few years, you and I both are wearing those smart glasses, right? And you can talk to an AI assistant using those things and ask any question. But pretty soon, we're going to have more and more of those things with displays in them and everything. And all of our digital diet will be mediated by AI assistants. And so if we only have access to 3 or 4 of those assistants coming from, a couple of companies on the west coast of the US or China, it's not going to be good for cultural diversity, democracy, everything else. We need a very wide diversity of AI assistants. That can only happen with open source, which is what Meta has being promoting as well.
Well, thank you both. I think that sets us up well for a discussion. And as a reminder, this is a town hall, not a panel. So we're going to be bringing in both the audience here in this room of incredible guests, as well as those on the live stream. So the first thing we did is we asked the folks on the live stream, there is a Slido you can join. Also, we asked, how would you like these emerging technologies to contribute to the future? And we're not going to show all the answers, but here's a word cloud of some of what folks have said. So if we just quickly look at that, I'm sure people, talked a lot about both what they're excited about and what they're worried about. I want you to get ready with your questions in the room. I'm sure everyone has some, but Yann, I want to follow up on the open source thing because there's really a big debate. I mean, as I said, technology is not a debate, but the approaches we take. And certainly open source has all the advantages that you mentioned. It allows people all over the world to join in. Only a few people are going to be able to train one of these giant models, but a lot of people can make use of them and can contribute. At the same time, there's a real concern that taking this powerful technology and giving it to the world and saying, basically, Meta says, here's our acceptable use policy. Here's what you can and can't do. But to be honest, there's really no way of enforcing that. Once it's out, it's out. How do we make sure something is both open source and safe?
So what we do at Meta is that when we distribute a model, so by the way, we say open source, but we know technically those things are not really open source because the source code is available, the weights of the model are available for free, and you can use them for whatever you want, except with those restriction clauses. Don't use it for dangerous things. So the way we do this is that we fine tune those systems and red team them to make sure that at least to first order they're not kind of spewing complete nonsense and or toxic answers or things like that. But there's a limit to how well that works, and those systems can be jailbroken. You can do what's called prompt injection, so type of prompt that will basically take the system outside of the domain where it's been fine-tuned, and you're going to get to its kind of root things, and then that depends on what training data is being pre-trained on, which of course is a combination of high-quality data and not so high-quality data.
And Dava is putting something like that into the world. I mean, obviously there are benefits to open sourcing that way. MIT is a pioneer in open source. There's an MIT license for open source. I can't remember. It may even be the license that Meta uses. At the same time, when you talk about having this technology be human-centered and putting humans and our needs and concerns at the forefront, what do you think needs to be done? You talked about synthetic biology and, all these things. Obviously, there's a lot of neglected diseases. There's a lot of things we want to use these new technologies for, and we don't want everyone just in their home developing new microorganisms to run around. So what are your thoughts on how we make this technology broadly available but still safe?
Yeah, thanks. That's the question, and seeing what people are concerned about too, AI in space. I agree with that. We can talk about the word cloud, but so based on open source platforms, but with guardrails, and we have to be all held accountable. Right now, we can, ask the audience as well, does AI work for you? And what I mean, do you trust it? Is it responsible? Is it representative of you? Do you think it has the training data that represents you?
Well, let's ask the audience. Yeah. How many of you feel that?
Do you think it's safe, secure, and, you're going to launch in and use it today, during this debate? Anyone raise their hand?
Well, I think there's the answer, and I think it's not. How many people would be open to AI, would love to use AI once they do feel it's safe and secure? Yeah.
Everyone. So that's why I asked the question. So it's not there yet. So it's not representative, doesn't represent everyone in this room. The world is much more diverse than what we have in the room. So it doesn't work. So maybe this is where the debate starts. So we're, open source. We want it to be open source. We want all the all my students are superstars and geniuses. We want all the next generation of the world to be able to give their creativity, their curiosity, because that's how human flourishing happens. But if we just let the algorithms, again, on their own, I think that we really have to rethink. Is it, where's the training data come from? Where's the transparency? Where's the transparency? Does it work for all of us? I think if those questions are answered, we have the majority of the folks, opting in and hopefully making it better, right? Open sourcing it is because you can get all the good ideas and enhance things. So we see that, coming, enhancing it, making it work for everyone. But I think we, here in very intentional, where's the transparency? Where's the trust? Has it kind of gotten away from us? So these are really important questions.
And Yann, I want to push you one more time, and then I hope you all have your questions ready because I'm coming to you next. I want to push you one more area, which is values. And I wrote about this last year that, social media has been about content moderation. What speech do you allow? Where do you draw the lines? Obviously, it's something that Meta has spent a lot of time on, has had different approaches. But it strikes me that these AI systems are going to have values. And I wrote that, your PC doesn't really have a set of values. Your smartphone, yes, there's some app store moderation. So, at the extreme, there's some limits. But the AI system is going to answer the hard questions. And, how do we do that in a world where, people in the Middle East have different values than people in the US? People in the US have different values than people in the US. Recently, Meta made a bunch of changes to how it's going to approach that, allowing a lot more speech, even that might be considered very offensive, distasteful, even dehumanizing. Where is the role of the tech companies in putting their thumb on the scale of the values? How much pressure is there going to be from governments to control what speech, how AI chatbots, for example, answer questions around gender, sexuality, human rights?
So there is an interesting debate about this. So this is not my specialty, I should tell you, but it's an interesting topic nevertheless that I'm interested in. So Meta has gone through several phases concerning content moderation and how best to do it, including with questions not just about toxic content, but also about disinformation, which is a much more difficult problem to deal with. So until 2017, let's say, detecting things like hate speech on social networks was very difficult because the technology just wasn't up to snuff. And counting on users to flag objectionable content and then have it reviewed by humans just doesn't scale, particularly if you need those humans to speak every language in the world. And so that just wasn't technologically possible. You just couldn't do it. And then what's happened is that there's been this, enormous progress in natural language understanding since 2017, basically. And that has made an enormous amount of progress. So now detecting hate speech in every language in the world is basically possible with some good level of reliability. So the proportion of hate speech, for example, that is taken down automatically by AI system was on the order of 20 to 25% late 2017. Late 2022, 5 years later, because of transformers, self-supervised learning, all the stuff that everybody is excited about today, it was 96%. Now, that probably went too far because the number of false positives of good content that was taken down is probably pretty high. So there are countries where people just want to kill each other, and you probably want to kind of, calm down. So put the detection threshold pretty low. Countries where there is an election and things kind of rile up. So also you want to lower the threshold of detection so that more things get taken down to sort of calm people down. But then most of the time you want people to be able to debate important societal questions, including for questions that are very controversial, like gender and political opinions, somewhat extremes. And so what's happened recently is the company realized it went a little too far, and there were just too many false positives. And now the detection thresholds are going to be changed a little bit to authorize discussions about topics that are big questions of society, even if the topic is offensive to some people. So that's a big change. But it doesn't mean content moderation is going to go away. It's just there. It's just you change the threshold. And again, the answer is different in different countries. So in Europe, it's illegal. Hate speech is illegal. Neo-Nazi propaganda is illegal, right? You have to do it for legal reason. You have to moderate that for legal reason. Not so in the US. And in various countries, you have different standards, as you said. Then there is a question of disinformation. And there, until now, Meta used a fact-checking organization to fact-check the big posts that had a lot of, gathered a lot of attention. But it turns out this system doesn't work very well. It doesn't scale. You don't have a large coverage of the content that is being posted because those organizations, there's only a few of them and they have a few people working for them. And so they can't just debunk every, dangerous misinformation that circulates on social networks. So the system that is being implemented now that will be rolled out is crowdsourcing. Essentially have people themselves, kind of write comments on posts that are controversial, and that is likely to have much better coverage. There are some studies that show that this is a better way of doing content moderation, particularly if you have some sort of karma system where people who make comments that turn out to be reliable or liked by other people, then so they get promoted. Several forums have used this system for many years. So the hope within Meta is that this will actually work better. And it also has a big advantage, which is that Meta has never seen itself as having the legitimacy to decide what is right or wrong for society. And so in the past has asked governments to regulate. Asked governments around the world, this was during the first Trump administration, tell us what is acceptable on social networks for online discussion. And the answer was crickets. There was basically no answer. I think there was some discussion with the Macron government in France, but the Trump administration at the time, the first one said, we're the First Amendment here, go away, you're on your own. So all those policies kind of resulted from this absence of regulatory environment. And now it's crowdsourced, it's, content moderation for the people by the people.
Well, there's much more we could talk about, but I don't want to. Oh, yes,
yeah,
please,
if I could get us back to values, I think that's the right question. So, if we can, that should be the first question. What are the values? So, and you have to be able to articulate your values. Like articulate my values. It's up to leadership to articulate values. So, for me, it's integrity, excellence, curiosity, community. Community encompasses belonging and collaboration. So if you can articulate your values, and then as designers, as builders, as technologists, flow from those values, we could get it right. What if we get this right? So I think we need to back up. So Meta should articulate, and in there's checking out what are the values. Do we have aligned values? Then we can collaborate. Then we can all collaborate and work together and respect our cultural differences and all the cornucopia that humanity is. And that's wonderful. And that's the opportunities to go across, all the cultures. But I think we fundamentally still have to have the discussion about values, and do we share values? That's the, I think, fundamental.
Yeah, the core share values that, need to be expressed. I mean, in that sense, the content policy from Meta are published, right? So it's not a secret. But then there is the implementation of it, right? And Meta in the past has made a mistake, deployed the system, and then realized that this is not working the way we wanted it. So kind of rolled it back and replaced it by other systems. It's constantly. But
you could lead. You could lead in industry and, lean in and be out in the front. That discussion.
By all measure, actually, Meta is leading in terms of content moderation. Absolutely.
And Dava, is that your sense? I mean, are you concerned with the new policies that? Obviously it's very difficult to say what are shared values. There are a lot of debates, again, even in the US. At the same time, we talked about a human-centered world, and the new policies certainly allow a lot of dehumanizing speech, whether it's comparing women to objects, trans people to it, gay people mentally ill. Have they gotten that balance right, or are they going?
No, we don't have the right policies, but absolutely no. Emphatically, no. We know what's wrong and right. We know human behavior. We know civility. We know what makes you happy when you're teaching your kids. We should probably look at our children, our kids, and the young generation as well, especially when we talk about values and what we have and who we aspire to be. there's a chance to get it right. But, we've run the experiment. Internet 1, Internet 2, I think we're running the experiment. So this is the opportunity to get it right.
I want to bring in the audience. Who would like to build on the discussion we've had? And please just say your name and where you're from. There's a mic coming around, but keep the intro short and ask a question.
I'm Mukesh from Bangalore, India. So Yann, your group is at the forefront of AI research, and so are many other groups around the world. Do we know where we are going? Is there a mental model for 5 years from now? Because we're all speculating and asking questions about where AI is today, challenges, and so on. Do we understand where we're going enough to have some prediction about 5 years, or is just too much wide open?
So my colleagues and I at Meta certainly understand where we are going. I can't claim to understand what other people are doing, particularly the ones that are not publishing their research and basically, have climbed up in recent times. But the way I see things going, so first of all, I think the shelf life of the current paradigm, large language model, is fairly short, probably 3 to 5 years. I think within 5 years, nobody in their right mind would use them anymore, at least not as kind of the central component of an AI system. One analogy that some people have made, which I've recycled, is LLMs are good at manipulating language, but not at thinking. Okay, manipulating language is done by a little piece of the brain right here called the Broca area. It's about this big and only popped up in the last few 100,000 years. It can be that complicated. What about this? The frontal cortex. That's where we think, right? We don't know how to reproduce this. So that's what we're working on. Having systems sort of build mental models of the world. So if the plan that we're working on succeeds, with the timetable that we hope, within 3 to 5 years, we'll have systems that are a completely different paradigm. They may have some level of common sense. They may be able to learn how the world works from observing the world go by and maybe interacting with it. Deal with real world, not just discrete world. And open the door to another application. I want to give you just a very interesting calculation. A typical foundation model today, large language model, is trained on 20 trillion tokens or 30 trillion tokens. A token is typically 3 bytes. So that's about 9, 10 to the 13 bytes, 10 to the 14 bytes. Okay, let's round it up. This basically is almost all of publicly available text on the internet. It would take any of us several 100,000 years to read through it. Okay. Now compare this with what a 4-year-old has seen in the 4 years of life. You can put a number on how much information gets to the visual cortex or through touch if you're blind, and it's about 2 megabytes per second, about 1 megabyte per optic nerve, about 1 byte per second per optic nerve fiber. We have 1 million of them for each eye. Multiply this by 4 years, and now in 4 years, a child has been awake a total of 16,000 hours. So figure out how many bytes that is. 10 to the 14, same number, in 4 years. So what that tells you is that we're never going to get to human level AI, which some people call AGI, but that's a misnomer. We're never going to get to human level AI by just training on text. We need systems to be able to learn how the world works from sensory data. And so that means LLMs are not it.
Okay, you talked about that as well.
We're not going to get human level AI within 2 years, like what some of people have been saying.
And you've been talking about that as well.
Yeah, so that's my point. This is in its infancy, so I think it's actually that's the way to clear it. Where LLMs are in the infancy, as infant. 4-year-old's not infant, but very very early on. But when you move to generative biology, training data, when you move to sensors, the Internet of Things, when you move to the almost infinite amount of data, information we have, and just multi-sensory. We're talking about you have the glasses on, your vision, but you're looking at text. How much do we get tactilely, hearing, sensing, smelling, right? We all had your coffee this morning. What's the first thing? What was the first thing that, you really related to this morning? Probably, breakfast and some coffee smell. So we put the multi-sensory capabilities again for humans. And I want to be clear from the earlier, comment, humanity, flourishing humanity, and all living beings, all living the appreciation for all of life, So human-centered design in terms of our technologies. but you get to choose your orientation. You get to choose who you're designing for. And so I think that's really important too, not the egocentric humanity versus the rest of it. That's the question. How long will we be here? Spaceship Earth is as technologies for space up there. That's my specialty. It doesn't need us. So a little humility, please, being humble. Earth's going to be fine without humanity. We're a bit of a nuisance, a huge nuisance. So, Earth is 4.5 billion years old. I have my sister planet Mars. Probably find past life there, about 3.5 billion years old. So, again, that view. Let's please, with humility and approach this. And then the question is, do we want to live in balance? Do we want to live the best lives that we can and flourish? And then I think you just approach it, with different questions. You approach solutions from a different perspective.
Thanks. I think I heard something over here. I'm not sure if it was a phone or a question, but now I see a hand.
Talk a lot about existence.
There's a mic coming because we have a live stream audience. And say who you are.
Moritz Bayerlens from Lightspeed. For Dava, you talk about AI, you talk about existence too. I'm glad you're making life or working on making human life, a multiplanetary species. Where does AI fit into this broader need? Do you see it as an existential threat? Do you see it as an existence enhancing technology? For example, generative bio? Is it our great filter?
Thank you for the question. So, I think we're the threat. I think that people are the threat, not my algorithms. And for, the question, when I do think about, searching, finding life elsewhere in the universe, it's a huge help. So when you say AI is not very useful anymore, it's almost just like saying technology. So then we should say the specifics, if we're talking. So when it comes to travel, space, for me, humans are here on Earth. We're sending our probes and our scientific instruments. So it has a lot to do with autonomy and autonomous systems. And now the human having information here, but that loop of information sensing and exploration. But these are all autonomous robots and systems. We are going to send people. And then we bring our own supercomputers with us. So that first human mission to Mars it'll surpass our current 50 years of exploring on Mars. So that's the benefit of humans or, human intellect. But so it's a great question. So it's a mix of, it's a threat. We use it to the advantage of, again, capabilities, searching, exploring, and again, in my case, searching for the evidence of biosignatures or finding life elsewhere. So when you're focused, and you know your mission, and again, be very transparent about how you're using algorithms, AI, and we always bring in something that's, very much missing in most of the development. When we get down to more foundational models, specific, personalized, foundational capability, whether it's for health or climate or exploration, you got to bring in the physics. So physics is more, if you let things go just mathematically, statistically, look at where we're at, fantastic. But I'm a big believer in, again, biomimicry. I'm trying to understand nature. I'm trying to understand living systems, always bringing in like foundational physics with my math, and you proceed along that course.
So while we continue the discussion in here, I also invite those online. We have a couple questions for you. What excites you about the technology that we're talking about? What worries you? And we have the opportunity to do some more word cloud. So if you're online and using Slido, please share your thoughts there. And then we had a question there. They're going to bring a microphone. Oh. Everyone, if you can just wait for a mic, it'll help those online.
Martina Hirayama, State Secretary for Education, Research and Innovation, Switzerland. My question goes to you, Dava. So you talk about values concerning AI. So we have a divide concerning access to AI or not. What influence will it have if we consider that we do not share the same values on Earth in all areas where we live? Not even talking about space. What influence will this have on divide?
Yeah, it's so again, I think it's fundamental to this. So I give a list of 5 or 6. So my hope is that we can agree on 2 or 3 of those, just 2 or 3 of those. We probably won't be the entire set, but I think we have to look for agreement and shared values, and then work together. And if not, then that's maybe the scenario that plays out of the threat, division, destruction. I don't want that path. I think we have an alternate path. So I think the hard work is people to people, Sure, policies, regulation. What do we agree on? What do we agree on? What future scenarios? And there are scenarios, it's very plural. What future scenarios do we agree on? And if we can agree on some of those, if we can share some of those values, and I think we can. We could take a poll, see if we can get one amongst all this, diversity here. So that's, it's not an answer. It's just part of the discussion of what can we share and what do we share together and make that the building blocks to get it right.
And Yann, that is kind of the challenge of building these systems for a globe, again, where the world doesn't agree on a lot. There's hopefully some basic things we agree on, though it seems like we struggle even on those. I know you've talked about using federated learning and to really make sure the world is represented in these models. But how do we build for a world where there is so much disagreement? Again, when AI systems aren't going to just moderate content, they're going to create and answer content.
Well, I think the answer to this is diversity. So if you have 2 or 3 AI systems that all come from the same location, you're not going to get diversity. So the only way to get diversity is having systems that are trained on all the languages and cultures and value systems in the world, and those are the foundation models, and then they can be fine-tuned by a large diversity of people who can build systems with different ideas of what good value systems are, and then people can choose. So it's the same idea as a diverse press, right? You need a diversity of opinion in the press to at least have the basic ingredient of democracy. So it's it's going to be the same for AI system. You need them to be diverse. So one way to do this, it's quite likely that it is going to be very difficult for a single entity to train a foundation model on all the data, all the cultural data in the world. And that may eventually have to be done in sort of a federated fashion or distributed fashion, where every region in the world or every interest group or whatever has their own data center and their own data set, and they contribute to training a big global model that may eventually constitute the repository of all human knowledge.
I saw a hand over here, and if you can wait for the mic, thanks.
Yeah, well, we're passing the mic. And I think that's much more exciting to me. More the federated, taking it again, transparency, because then it's more customized, it's more personalized. It's going after, for the work. It's again going after a medicine or health or a specific, breast cancer. It can be more specific and much more precise. So to me, that's very exciting.
Hi, my name is Mukta Joshi and I'm from London. I was listening to a panel yesterday and they talked about a concept that really startled me. And I went back and did a bit of research on it. And it's called alignment faking in LLMs, which is about how, the LLM models are giving answers which they are faking to align to whatever is being asked to them or whatever the general can say. It is probably an experiment that has happened in the last few months, but it was really startling. And I just thought I'd get a few thoughts from you on that.
Okay. I have perhaps a slightly controversial opinion about this, which is that to some extent, LLMs are intrinsically unsafe. Okay. Because they're not controllable. You don't really have any direct way of controlling whether what they say is, has certain characteristics, with respects guardrails. The only way you can do this is by training them to do it. But of course, that training can be undone by, going outside of the domain where they've been trained. So to some extent, they are intrinsically unsafe. Now, that's not particularly dangerous because they're not particularly smart either, right? So they're useful. They are, in terms of intelligence, they are more like intelligence assistants, in the sense that, if they produce a text, that a lot of it can be wrong in it, and you have to kind of go, do a pass on it and then correct some of the mistakes and know what you're doing. It's a bit like, driving assistance for cars. We don't have completely autonomous consumer cars, but we have driving assistance and it works pretty well. So same thing. But we should forget about LLMs. So this idea that somehow we should extrapolate the capability of LLMs and realize, they can, fake their intentions. First of all, they don't have any intentions. And simulate values. They don't have any values. And convince people to do horrible things. They don't have any notion of what this is at all. And as I said, they're not going to be with us 5 years from now. We're going to have much better systems that are objective driven, where the output that those systems will produce will be by reasoning. And the reasoning will guarantee that whatever output is produced satisfies certain guardrails. And the system will not, those systems will not be able to be, it wouldn't be possible to jailbreak them by changing the prompt, basically, because that would be sort of hardwired in the guardrails.
So given what Yann just said, Dava, the big talk, the big buzzword this year is agents and giving more power to these LLMs. Given what Yann just said about their limitations, and this is one of the companies making it, should we be worried about giving more autonomy and agencies to a system that has no values, makes mistakes?
Yeah, well, and I don't think so. I agree with what Yann said. The LLMs said they're not smart, they don't have rationality, they don't have the intention. I mean, they're just lacking. Think of them as math, and statistical, probabilities like that. So all of probably what we much more care about, in humans is, judgment. That's what, the question is like, well, seems very alerting because it's, fakes of any types are alerting, right? So, but the question, what do we do about this? Because, agents, agentic, it is turning into agentic. So simple, there's some simple, I don't know if there's solutions, there's just simple ideas we can do, right? We copyright things like that. What if it just, comes up every time we're using a generative, model? Why isn't it watermarked? Why isn't, what do we know that, what's, is this coming from a human? Is this, coming from an algorithm? Just visually, just say, just watermark that. It's generative, just some more information about what you're looking at. So the person, the user, if this is being, served up to someone, they can take it. I want to do the flip side of this argument too, debate, with myself. I mean, published a paper on unlocking creativity. Again, with machine learning. It's fantastic, some generative capability. We have an idea. So we just do some simple brainstorming and generate, again, to me, I like actually images, the text, because it maps to the human brain. We're almost perfect in terms of image mapping and looking at visuals. So we say my sentence, what's that image? And, Yann can have his, and we look down, and we're going to have a really nice discussion. It's going to help us to actually be more creative, we can have more discussion if it's kind of a prompt for us. That's where it's a tool. It really is then an assistant. It's helping us converse and have a discussion or a debate. So I think it should definitely be flagged. We have to know where it comes from. We have to know, what the ingredients are into the recipe.
So it's hard to believe we only have a couple minutes left, and I want to give each of you a chance to give us one thing we haven't talked about. What aren't we talking about enough that we should be talking about, and maybe we'll be talking about next year?
Okay, I'm going to go by the list that we're seeing here. Right?
Exactly.
This is what excites you the most about technology.
Okay, brain-computer interface, forget about that. This is not happening anytime soon, at least not the invasive type that Neuralink is working on. The non-invasive type, so things like, electromyogram bracelets that Meta is working on, yes, that's happening this year. And that's exciting, actually. But like drilling your brain, no. Except for clinical purpose. Gaming virtual world, Meta, of course, has been sort of very active in this space with metaverse, space exploration. You're the expert. It's exciting as well. Regulation, that's a very interesting topic that I think people are in government have been brainwashed to some extent into believing in the existential risk story, and has led to regulation that are frankly counterproductive, because the effect that they have is essentially make open source, the distribution of open source AI engine, essentially illegal. And in my opinion, that's way more dangerous than all the other potential dangers. Consumer robotics, as I said, maybe the coming decade will be the decade of robotics, because maybe we'll have AI systems that are sufficiently smart to understand how the real world works. And in your previous cloud, there was efficiency and power consumption. Efficiency, there is enormous motivation and incentive for the industry to make AI inference more efficient. So you don't have to worry about people not being motivated enough to make AI systems efficient. This is the main cost of running an AI system, is power consumption. So enormous amount of work there, but the technology is what it is.
Thanks, Dave. And we have a minute left.
Yeah.
Give you
Speed
the last
round.
one.
I'll take 3 of them. Politely disagree. Brain-computer interfaces. No, it's not off. It's happening now. In terms of we have a digital central nervous system, so we're already having a brain control over, especially in the area of breakthrough on technologies for replacement for prosthetics. So half human, half robotic. New robotic legs. Get rid of phantom foot. Because the brain is literally controlling the robot. So it's we're to the cyborg phase. We're doing that. It's implanted. People are walking around. Soon will hopefully be paraplegics. In the future, maybe quadriplegics. So the brain is controlling a digital central nervous system. The brain is quite powerful. So it's the surgery. So I'd love to talk about that, but that's here. That's not even the future. That's the now. After space we talked about a little bit. But again, for scientific purposes, finding life, what does that? Why explore out and source? Because it tells us it's not option B. Sorry, Elon, it's not option B. It's for flourishing humanity. It's to appreciate all of us together, our humanity, and what we can get right here on Earth, and definitely living in balance with Earth. So, but it's necessary because when we design for space in the extreme environments of the Moon, Mars, you name it, Europa, Kuiper, anywhere in the solar system, exoplanets. It's because for us, it pushes the technology, makes me, really sharpen the game in terms of technology. So very optimistic about that. I think we will find the evidence of life or past life in the next decade. Robotics, this is consumer robotics. Okay. But what if it's just the robotic, hardware, software, robotics, you think of, physical systems. Well, guess what? Now what robots, they are the AI, they're the algorithms, they're the software. So we do get to that physical cyber. We get to where we don't talk about hardware and software. We get to just the robotics or the machine. It's embedded with the software. My favorite use cases are for health. Revolutionizing, individualized, personalized medicine, things like that. Rather than buying it and more stuff and more consuming. What if you make your own? Again, we're back to open source. Let everyone, do it yourself, make it yourself, open source it, and use it from all recycled. Let's think about, what's circular. So what can we do with everything? Any waste? That's the new, to me, that's the new robotic, informed physical cyber system of the future in the hands, of course, of our kids. And they'll do just a little bit of education. They'll do some pretty wonderful things with it if you leave it to the next generation. Well, that's a great place to leave things. We are going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much, Dava Newman from MIT, Yann LeCun from Meta, everyone in the room, and everyone who's joined us.